Cinematic lighting can seem overwhelming, especially when you look at all those behind-the-scene images that are just filled with massive lights, diffusion frames, and a bunch of grip equipment. But at its core, all lighting setups, no matter how complex they are built on the fundamental three-point lighting theory. By understanding the relationship between the key light, the fill light, and the backlight, you'll be able to craft depth, contrast, and separation in any of your shots. Let's dive right in. The three-point lighting theory is designed to shape the subject and create depth within the frame. It consists of three important light sources: the key light, the fill light, and of course the backlight, each playing a specific role in defining the overall look of your scene. Three-point lighting doesn't necessarily mean using three physical lights. It refers to three distinct light sources that shape the subject. The number and type of actual light you use, well, that's going to depend on the scene, the environment, and of course the desired look. So for example, in a naturally lit setting, a window might serve as the key light, while a bounce board acts as the fill, and a practical lamp or natural ambient light provides separation instead of a dedicated backlight. In a controlled studio setup, you might use multiple lights to mimic these sources. The key is understanding how light interacts within the frame and using a variety of tools, whether artificial or natural, to achieve the cinematic look that you want. The key light is the primary light source. It's responsible for achieving the brightness level desired on your subject. So let's take a look at an example. I wanted to shoot a night scene using a Lego car. The key light in this example is providing the moonlight, and I apologize, I don't know how to draw, so pretend this is a moon, and it's providing all the levels that you see on this frame. There's no other lights turned on except the key light, and I can just adjust the intensity of that light to provide the amount of levels I want on the car. Now, where to place the key light is also critical to achieve a natural look. Now, typically, the darker side of the picture is on the side closer to the camera. So this side here would be darker. And then the leading side, the side with a lot more leading room, is typically the brighter side of a picture. But when deciding where to place the key light, you also need to think about where the light should come from. And that's mostly based on what's in the frame. So in my example, I'm kind of free to place the moonlight wherever I want. But if we look at this scene, we can see the window in the reflection of the mirror. And so it kind of dictates where the key light needs to be placed, because we don't want to fight this daylight. We don't want to make this the darker side. And so our key light is actually going to be placed on the same side as the window, and it's there to enhance the daylight coming in and providing a controlled way of raising the level on our subject. Now, this applies to any light sources. It doesn't have to be a window. Like in this shot, we can see in this bar scene that we have a lamp sitting on the edge of the counter with our actor sitting right here at the bar. And so that lamp is going to dictate where our key light needs to be placed when we look at the reverse shot, when we face our actor. Because if our lamp was sitting on this side of the counter, then we want our key light to come from the same side and provide levels on our actor's face that we can control, but looking like it's coming from that lamp. Sometimes showing the light source can help make the shot look more natural. Do you like this shot better or this shot better? It's the same shot, I just cropped out the window. But the presence of the window reveals the source of the harsh light. For me, without the window, the shot looks a lot more artificial, like overlit, which is ironic because I actually didn't use any light at all for this shot. But the window helps me as a viewer understand why that light is so harsh. Unfortunately, this is where I get to show you my mistakes. And trust me, there were plenty of shots I could have picked from, but I wanted to show you this particular one. And right off the bat, you can probably tell that my key light is just on the wrong side. And that's really one, because it's closer to the camera versus the leading side, but most importantly, because of the lighting in the room. And so you can see that we have plenty of bright spots on this side. His hat is nice and bright here. And then we have a lot of darkness and shadows on this side on his hat. And then now you look at his face and we have dark here and light here. So we flip-flopped the key light And I remember this shot, this was a few years ago, and I remember that we didn't have room on the key side to place the light that I wanted. And I remember having a conversation with the crew to try to figure out what to do. And I made the executive decision to say, you know what, guys, we're running out of time. My client is sitting there. I'm feeling the pressure. Let's just put the key light on the other side. Let's raise the levels and let's roll with it. And it's a mistake because, again, we can see now how unnatural this looks. Another common mistake is also placing the key light too much in front of the subject, which will result in a flat, uninteresting image with no shadows on the other side. So going back to my car, I then decided to put my key light or my moonlight on the left side of the frame, and that's creating all those levels that you see. But most importantly, it's creating all this darkness over here. And that is just a playground for us to then shape those shadows in order to create depth. And that's where the fill light comes into play, so that we can add a light source on the shadow side and control how dark those shadows are. And here on this shot, all I have on is my fill light, and actually I'm using two different lights. I have one shining directly on the side of the car, and I have one shining kind of like the front underneath the car to kind of reveal some of the detail underneath the car. Now, I know it's subtle, and we want it to be subtle because we don't want to create the same level of brightness as the key side, or else it will be all flat. And so we just want enough to control the level and make it however dark we want it. So you could actually not use a light if you like those contrasts. You can use a bounce board, or you can even use a neg, which is a black cloth that would actually remove some of the light. So you'll need to experiment with the placement and the intensity of your fill light, just so that, again, you can achieve the type of shadows that you're looking for. And this is really where your image can become a lot more cinematic. If you raise your key light and lower the fill, it will result in deep contrast, shaping your subject and giving your shot a lot of depth and definition. The backlight or edge light is used to separate the subject from the background, adding depth to the composition. Now, depending on the look that you're looking for, adjust the intensity to create sharp edges and add a more dramatic feel. Now, the placement of the backlight has changed over the last few years. It used to be a backlight, like placed directly behind and above the subject, but placing that light lower and more to the side can create a more intense look, which I actually really like. So I like using the name edge light more than backlight. In my example, I also play with different placement of that light. If you remember, our moon, which still doesn't look like a moon when I draw it, is frame left. And so it should tell us that our edge light should actually be shining on the right side of the car. But it just didn't look right, and I was losing the entire side of the car. Like the whole back end of the car was completely blended with the black of the background. And so when I moved the light to this side, then it created all those very bright points here and gave me a little bit of a definition here on the edges that I thought was really nice. And again, the edge light is really there to separate your subject from the background. And so I wasn't creating any separation on the other side. So again, you could look at the shot and say, well, that makes no sense that it comes from this side. But this is the beauty of what we do. We're here to make beliefs. And as long as it looks good, then I think people will give you grace here. But I guess we're not fully done yet, because we still have to deal with the background in a lot of the scene. Not necessarily in my night shot. That's kind of how far I went. Just let it all be pitch black in the back. But you're going to be in certain scenarios where you have a whole background to deal with that's outside of the 3-point lighting system. But you can use different lights to create some accents in your background. So in this shot, we can identify each light sources pretty easily. We have windows here that dictates that our key light is going to be on this side, providing levels here on her face and her jacket. And then on the opposite side, I actually have a bounce that's providing a little bit of levels here, but we still have separation between the key side and the fill side. And then obviously we can see we also have a top light that's providing levels here, a little bit on her shoulders as well. And then the background, I actually just use practicals. So the light that they had in their kitchen, I just turned those on and it provided the levels that I needed on the cabinets. Now, looking at the frame now, I wish I would have asked about lights underneath the cabinets, because I could have easily turned those on and provide a little bit of a brighter spot, just again to separate a little bit more, to give something a little bit more interesting back there. But it's easy to see them. And then again, using practicals or other lights, you can then create some accents in your background. Going back to the bar scene, we actually use this jukebox as a reason or a natural way of raising the levels in the room. And so we actually placed a key light behind him that is bringing all those levels up to the level that we felt we needed to. And because the jukebox is there, it just makes it look natural that it's possible that that jukebox is shining all this light over here. Now, the same applies for outdoors. The tools you use might be different, but the principle remains the same. So here you can see that we have a key light and it's providing all the levels on him, and it's just a white bounce. We also have our fill, which is also another bounce that's bringing some levels on this side because they didn't want it to be too contrasty. And you can notice how far this bounce board is compared to this bounce board. And really, that's our dimmer. By moving the bounce board away from the subject, then the bounce board has less effect and we can control contrast that way. So if we want less contrast, then we will bring it closer. If we want more contrast, we keep moving it away or we remove it completely. We actually use 2 bounce boards for our fill. You can see the other one on the floor here, and that one is providing levels up on his neck and his chin to kind of remove some of the shadows created by the sun shining through this diffuser, and that's acting as our backlight and our edge light. And it, the sun is so harsh, it creates a lot of shadows under here. And so by placing this bounce board here, we're able to bring some levels and remove some of those shadows. By mastering the fundamentals of 3-point lighting, you'll have the tools to create cinematic, professional-looking shots in any environment, whether you're working with natural light, a simple setup, or a full studio rig. Understanding how to shape light and control contrast will give you the flexibility to adapt and elevate your visual no matter where you're filming. Thank you for watching this video until the end, and as a token of my appreciation, I'd like to offer you my free camera setting cheat sheet. Just follow the link below and download your free cheat sheet. Thanks again, and happy filming.